I want to kick it off with a simple yet very important question. Why did Democrats shut the government down, take food off the table, pay out of paychecks, and jack up our flights for 41 days and 40 nights? Does anyone really know? The show starts now. Joining me now in studio is the Michael Knowles Show host, Michael Knowles. I think Democrats have really backed themselves into a corner with this one, Michael, because now they are saying that they still don't want it to reopen. Yeah. So they're basically admitting that they're the ones that shut it down, and they did it for nothing. And now there's a big civil war in the Democrat Party, which is, I think, deeper than the so-called civil war in the Republican Party that we'll talk about.
Yes.
But I think now it's going to be really bad for them. And I think Chuck Schumer is looking bad, even though he tried to be strong. I think he looks more feeble than ever.
People are calling for his resignation. Ro Khanna, who's a serious Dem, he's calling for his resignation. Others are too. There's always a civil war on the Republican side. That's perennial. The conservatives are always fighting with each other. The Democrats used to be unified. This shutdown really backfired. Now, in fairness, they got something out of it. It helped them in the Virginia elections, I think.
Yeah.
It shifted the conversation away from crime in their cities, which it had been focused on. So, all right, they get that. But for a while, they were saying it's the Republicans shutting this down. Republicans would say, well, actually, we're just giving you a continuing resolution that you already voted for in the Biden budget. So they're admitting, okay, yeah, we shut it down. Well, it's for fixing health care. Fixing health care from what? The health care law is Obamacare. That was your law that you said was going to fix it forever. Okay, well, it's for getting some new subsidies. And now they cave over nothing. I think this is a symptom of a Democrat Party that is completely exhausted. And there's a lot of evidence for this. For the first time in 25 years, you don't have a leading Democrat candidate for president at this time in the cycle. No one has 25% support. You've got aging out leaders, Chuck Schumer. You've got major Democrats calling for his resignation. You got Gavin Newsom smacking him, says it's pathetic. So at the end of it, they gave us the longest government shutdown in American history, seriously hurt some people, pulled food stamps from the people that they supposedly care about, screwed up flights for everybody. For what? They slightly overperformed in Virginia on election day. That's it. And that's it.
They got Spanberger out of it.
Can we return that, please? Yeah, check, please.
That's what they got out of it.
Yeah.
I guess good for them. It's pretty obvious why they did it. They had to rile up the base to turn out, and that's what they wanted, so I guess they got that. But I wouldn't look at that as the best end of the deal here.
Well, the thing you got to remember is the shutdown itself was a Hail Mary pass. The shutdown itself was a desperate play because not only were the Democrats looking bad on all of those fronts that we just mentioned, but on every issue, just about, they were on the wrong side, 80-20. So the only issues where they're above board are women's rights, which just means abortion. But abortion's not that important to most people.
No, not right now.
Environmentalism. Okay, no one really cares.
No.
The only one that they're beating the Republicans on is healthcare, and healthcare does matter to people. So they thought, okay, this is great. We're gonna shift the conversation to healthcare. We're gonna maybe get some concessions from the Republicans. None of that happened. So great job. At the end of the day, all you get is that Chuck Schumer might lose his job.
Yeah, as he should. As he should. But I'll tell you, this flight thing, it's touched a lot of people. There's a lot of things when the government shuts down that you go, oh, it's awful that it's shut down, but it doesn't directly impact you.
Yeah.
If you're not reliant on SNAP and you're not a government worker, the government shutdowns is kind of just a passing headline. But the flight thing is going to touch most people because most people are either traveling or they know someone who's traveling or they're dependent on someone who's traveling.
Family coming in for Thanksgiving, whatever.
Yeah, but beyond that, let's think about the ramifications of this. The airlines are going to lose billions over this. Billions, because they're having to compensate people when they cancel their flights, really through no fault of their own, having to cancel these flights. So they're going to have to compensate people. And then there are going to be people that are going to be stranded. So those people, I don't know what those people are going to do. If they can't get on a flight, they were supposed to take a Monday flight, now they can't get out until Wednesday. I saw a lot of people in LaGuardia on Monday morning sleeping in the airport. Okay, it looked ridiculous, but a lot of people couldn't afford a hotel or didn't want to pay for a hotel. So you got that aspect. And then you just know that in order to recuperate all of the expense this has cost, the airlines are going to jack up the fares. Right. Just wait. It happened with COVID when it was, oh, we can't fly or we need restrictions or people are scared to go out in public. And then the airlines lost a lot of money. And then what happened after that? Everyone started flying. The rates jacked up. Then they charge you for every tiny little thing. That's going to happen. Spring, summer, it's going to be inexpensive, or it's going to be more expensive than ever to fly.
I live at the airport. I do a lot of travel, a lot of business travel. And on Friday, when I heard that things were really going to start to get serious, I had to move a flight way up to 6 in the morning. I was okay, but then I've heard from reliable sources. I've heard from friends of mine that it's really kicked in. So there's this deadline, a natural deadline to the government shutdown, which is Thanksgiving. And lawmakers, if you don't have that Thanksgiving deadline, then it's going to be a big spending fight over Christmas. It looks like the 8 Democrat senators figured it out, such that, okay, they'll push the spending fight off until January 31st, and maybe the House will come along on that. But there is this bigger issue, which is, okay, why did the Democrats finally cave? I think a big part of it was Trump threatening to nuke the filibuster. And there are a lot of us, I like the filibuster. I think it's good to have slower procedures in the Senate. But I was totally for nuking the filibuster in this case. The Dems have been inching toward this for a long time. The minute they get power, you know they're going to try to do it.
You don't think that they wanted it so that they could now say you did it first? I think they want it gone because I think that they feel pretty confident about their chances in 26 and 28. And I think that they wanted Republicans to make the move.
The problem is, yes, you can blame the side who does it, but whoever does it first has a massive tactical advantage. You now have the first time in memory that 51 senators can get legislation through, or a bare majority in the House. So, or sorry, it's obviously a Senate procedure, but that means you can ram through the president's agenda. I think the time to come was now. And if you told me, name the top 3 things that convinced those 8 senators to come on over, I bet it was the filibuster threat that did it more than anything.
That, and I think that they were realizing they were losing the messaging war.
Certainly.
Because it's really hard, like I said, when you're starting to impact travel. It's one thing to say federal workers, SNAP benefits. It's another thing when everyone's touched by it, then they started going, oh, people are really pissed now. You spend a lot of time in airports. I spend a lot of time in airports. People get pissed. When their flights are delayed or canceled, I don't know if there's a more rabid group of people than travelers stuck somewhere. And I think Democrats saw that and they go, uh-oh, this is now on us. Yes. And we're going to start getting the brunt of this. And I think that you had those 8 or 7 saying, now's time.
Yes. Well, you look at them, and I think you can sympathize with their surprise, with their shock, because every government shutdown in our lifetimes is blamed on the Republicans. And sometimes it's the Republicans' fault, sometimes it's the Democrats' fault. In this case, though, I think they were just betting. This is one of their most reliable tactics. Healthcare is one of their best issues. So, okay, we're going to do it. The Republicans are going to get blamed. And it didn't happen. And you don't have to take my word for it. You had the CNN pollster going out and saying, no, this is a really weird one, but actually Trump's numbers are going up. And actually, people don't really blame the Republicans for this. And so I think there's this shock, especially among the older guard Democrats, who say, shoot, man, we've tried everything. The party is totally split on virtually every issue, on migration, on how we're speaking about workers, on foreign policy, on everything. Here we go. Here's the Hail Mary pass. Even their tactics aren't working now. And I think if you're, Pelosi's retiring. If you're Chuck Schumer, I think you're really worried today. And I think if you're one of the younger Dems, Zohran Mamdani, of Mamdanistan up there in the north, or if you're AOC or Jasmine Crockett, you have to be feeling pretty good because there is a sea change happening. The present makeup of the Democrat Party is completely exhausted. It's running on fumes.
Yeah. Well, it's good for them. They can't actually govern, though, beyond TikTok. So they're in for a whole other thing. Real quickly, I want to talk about President Trump and his Truth Social about the air traffic controllers. Talked about the bonus, which I thought was great. All the libs want to take that part out of it. He's saying, listen, if you actually came to work and you basically served your country by coming to work, I want to give you a bonus. But to the ones who decided to call out sick and not show up even knowing that you were going to get back pay, I'm not happy with you. And so, of course, the libs are saying, he's going after the air traffic controllers. He shouldn't do that. Now, listen, I think that there are some that said, hey, I'm not getting paid, I'm not showing up. But I think there are some that said, I do have to get another job now because I, quite frankly, cannot pay my bills. It's probably a mix of both. But I love the idea of a bonus, and I think that they should get a bonus. But what do we need to do to get these planes in the air? Not even just because of the shutdown, but we were already not in a great space. If you fly at all into Newark, you know that. Things are not great in Newark, just generally speaking.
I try to avoid that like the plague. I try never to make it into Newark. But yes, of course,
that reason,
they were already stressed. And the messaging's not going to work here for the Democrats if they're trying to suggest that Trump is anti-worker. I mean, Trump is talking about giving American workers, not the super rich, but people who are middle class and lower middle class, tariff dividends. You know, it doesn't work with a more populist Republican Party, which Trump has given us. What's also funny about them going after Trump on this issue of the air traffic controllers is they seem to forget history. One of the greatest moments in the Reagan administration was when the air traffic controllers illegally went on strike and Reagan called their bluff. He comes out and he says, if they don't return to work in 48 hours, they've lost their jobs. They will be terminated. He called their bluff. It worked. He broke them. In this case, the air traffic controllers are not showing up, in part because the government, the legislators, have shut things down and won't pay them. So Trump's move here is almost like the yin to the yang of Ronald Reagan. You know, Reagan was hitting them when they were out of line, and here Trump is stepping in and saying, look, thank you. We're going to reward you for doing this great service to your country. If you haven't been showing up, I'd really appreciate it if you would show up. But the Democrats have surrendered their pro-worker line. I mean, they did that through their support of mass migration. They've done that through their extremely irresponsible governing, the shutdown included. So I think that's lost, and it could be lost for a generation.
I want to turn now to the gender gap, because I was very excited to talk to you about this. We saw in these Tuesday elections, Democrats did well, right? And I don't think that was necessarily a shocker in the areas that they did well. I thought both Spanberger and Mikey Sherrill were not great candidates.
Yeah.
I was actually kind of hopeful for New Jersey. And there are still good things about New Jersey, right? You know, I still think that we're making gains in New Jersey. But you had Mikey Sherrill, you had Spanberger, but you saw women in Mamdani. I mean, I think that's still an outlier case because New York is crazy.
Yeah.
But still, women showed out for Democrats. And they always have tended to do so. But now the numbers to me are a little shocking, a little sobering. Now, I said this on air and I'll keep saying it. There are liberal women that we are never going to reach. They're never going to vote Republican. They're never going to like Donald Trump. They're never going to like MAGA conservative, none of that. They are unreachable. They have the short little bangs, and they have mullets, and they have septum piercings.
That's the tell.
And they wear Birkenstocks, and they have BO, okay? We're not going to reach them, nor do I think it's necessarily worth our energy to try to. We're not going to flip them. But there's another group, and I think that we do the Republican and conservative movement a disservice by not recognizing that there is a group of Gen Z and millennial women who don't have the little short bangs, who don't have the mullets and the septum piercings, who still vote Democrat, but I think that they are reachable, and I think that they are winnable, but we've lost them. And I'd like to ask you why you think that is.
Well, we have to think of the context of these elections. First of all, history shows us that when one party is in the White House, in that first midterm election, this is a little pre-midterm election, they usually get clobbered. So that was the precedent. And Trump, it's all kind of weird. It's a non-consecutive second term for the second time in American history. We don't know. He's an unpredictable guy. That precedent held. Now, of course, we're talking about pretty blue places where these elections took place in New York, New Jersey, Virginia. So again, miracles can happen. Glenn Youngkin can win. Rudy Giuliani can win in New York. But everything was primed for it to be Democrats. The third thing is the economy is a little shaky. Certain numbers are really, really great. When Trump says that a lot of our economic indicators are terrific, that's true. But there are signs of turmoil underneath the economy. Add on to that the government shutdown, which creates chaos. Okay, you can't really run on the economy. For the women, one, Zohran Mamdani, he's a charismatic candidate. I don't know. I mean, I defer to the women on this, but I could see why a lady would fall for that sort of vaguely jihadi communist riz of his.
Yeah.
Obviously, Spanberger and or Ciottarella, the Republican in New Jersey, didn't quite have that. However, there's also a very practical aspect, which is the ground game. You know, in 2024, Trump was able to win 40% of women under the age of 30. That's a pretty big number. He did better with older women, but even women under the age of 30, this should be prime Democrat voting demo. Trump gets 40%. He did it because practically there was a very good ground game to get those women out, in part led by Charlie Kirk, for that matter. In the midterms and this little pre-midterm election, we didn't have that ground game. And so all of the trends that we can expect for Democrats were really just exacerbated. If I look at a number, I see 82% of women in New York voting for Mamdani. That's horrible. I don't love that. We also have to temper that by remembering there was no real Republican candidate either. So I'm nervous, but I'm not, I don't want to draw conclusions that are maybe overstating the point when there are really tangible explanations for what happened.
Yeah. I'll tell you, my fear is this. The Democrats, the liberals, they recognized too late that they lost young men.
Yeah.
And now they're desperately trying to get them back. So I fear that we are falling into that same pattern where we're not recognizing the gender gap. We're not recognizing that we're losing young women. And I don't want it to be too late.
Yeah.
I think we have to start now winning them back over.
What do you think we have to do?
Well, I have a few thoughts. I do think that we need to focus on the economy and safety because I think most women vote on those things. I think the reason Trump did so well with suburban women, I think that he got the pro-choice independent women to vote for him last year.
Yeah.
Because as much as they were swayed by some of the emotional things and the abortion thing, I think they wanted their economy and their safety. First and foremost, that's what they voted on. So whether they liked the way he talked or they didn't like the abortion stuff, they were saying, hey, listen, my family's important to me. And what I'm paying at the grocery store is important to me. I want to be safe and secure. The immigration issue, that plays into safety, law and order. Some of them held their nose and voted for Donald Trump.
Yeah.
I really do believe. You didn't see the same thing last week, though. And I think part of it is going to be a refocus on the economy. I think we're starting to realize that now.
Yeah.
A discussion on affordability. We've got to do something on healthcare. We've got to finally do the repeal and replace thing that we've been kicking down the road. I think we need to tackle that. But I think, too, and I've been saying this, I think there are a lot of Gen Z and millennial women who now look at mega conservative Republicans and they look at this culturally and socially and they feel as though this party stands for asking women to be more traditional or seeing women as more traditional. Yeah. And I think there are a lot of Gen Z millennial women that reject that and it rubs them the wrong way. They think emotionally on the issue and they're like, don't tell me to go back home and just be a mom. Yeah. You know, they don't like it. They want that choice and they think it's their choice, but they don't want to be lectured on that.
It's tricky for the Zoomers because there's always this battle over the Zoomers. Are they the most left-wing generation ever or the most right-wing generation ever? And the answer, as far as I can tell, looking at all the data and knowing a lot of them, is they're both. So the left-wing ones are like trans with 50 septum piercings, and the right-wing ones are slightly to the right of Mussolini. And that's basically the divide. And so there are plenty of Zoomer women. There are plenty of Zoomer women who want to be way more traditional than millennial, Gen X, certainly boomer women. But yes, they're also the ones who want all the crazy, sexual identities and all the rest of it. So how do you speak to them in a persuasive way? Your point on the pro-abortion or pro-choice suburban mom is really interesting because Trump is the most pro-life president we have ever had. He is the first president to show up in office to the March for Life. He appointed the judges that overruled Roe v. Wade. By all counts, he is the most pro-life president we've ever had. And yet, how does he appeal to those people? Because he just doesn't talk about abortion that much. And
Bingo.
This is the key. This is exactly what I want in my politician. I'm extremely pro-life, about as pro-life as it is possible to be. And I want to move the ball down the field. I'm pro-life. And I want my politicians to be wise as serpents and innocent as doves. That is not the big issue. Even for pro-lifers, it's not always the number one issue. Just be cool, man. Focus on those kitchen table issues, especially you want to appeal to women. Women generally control the household finances, and women are concerned about safety. Great. Those are, forget about 80-20 issues for Republicans. Those are 90-10 issues for Republicans. Go for it. And on the other issues, sometimes working a little more quietly can win you a lot more battles.
Yeah, that's what I've been saying too. I don't want Gen Z and millennial women to view the Republican Party, the GOP, mega conservative, whatever we are, whatever you think of us as, when you're going to check the R box on your ballot. I don't want them to think of us as the televangelist party.
Yeah.
And I worry that we're shifting back into that terrain when I think President Trump actually brought us out of that terrain. I think President Trump was not, especially 2015, 2016, President Trump was not the televangelist candidate, right? Yeah. And there were a lot of hardcore Christians and conservatives that had a real problem with the fact that he wasn't like the Falwell type guy. He wasn't.
Yes.
Rough around the edges, locker room talk. That was President Trump. But he talked about the issues that people actually care about, their leaders talking about, that actually impact their daily lives.
It's very strange because in many ways, America is more inclined toward religion today than we have been at any time in my lifetime. You look at the decline of Christianity, according to Pew, it's sort of leveled off. You're seeing many more young people, especially, going back to church, a huge spike in baptisms, especially among young people. So in a weird way, you've got this religious revival brewing. Bible sales way up, church attendance way up. And yet, the candidate that we all love is a thrice married lapsed Presbyterian from New York who does not thump his Bible, who goes out and he jokes. He says, you know, look, I want to get to heaven. I want to end the Ukraine war because I want to go to heaven, and I don't know that I'm going there, which is actually a statement of religious humility. And so what I notice, and you can see this in the media landscape, people are really interested in religion right now. New atheism is deader than disco, but they don't want some guy to come out in an ill-fitting suit and, you know, hammer on about his particularly doctrinaire, probably heretical view of the Bible. I think they're in a very exploratory phase. This is why Rogan is the biggest podcaster ever. This is why you see this across podcasts, really. This exploratory phase, asking questions. And in many ways, Trump's like that, especially after Butler. Trump seems to be exploring religion in a way that I think a lot of people can identify with. You look at J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance is a convert. He was raised without very much religion, and then he discovered St. Augustine, then City of God. He converted. I think a lot of people are on that path. And so it's not that they don't want to talk about religion. They just want you to talk about religion in the place that they are as well, kind of
They don't want to be
figure it out.
preached to.
Yeah, basically.
They don't want to be preached to, and they don't want to be told how they should live their life.
You know, it's tricky I agree with the first part. In terms of they don't want to be told how to live their lives. You know,
Do you want a politician telling you how to live your life?
I want to tell the politician how he should tell people to live their lives. I guess that's a little bit different. But, you know, politicians are going to tell you how to live your life because they have to pass laws, and laws tell you how to live your life.
Not your personal life necessarily, though.
I don't know.
I don't feel that President Trump tries to preach morality or tries to preach from a moral high ground. I don't see that with him. He's very just common sense, nuts and bolts. Here it is. And I think that the televangelist persona turns people off.
I totally agree on the point about persona. But on the nuts and bolts of it, one of the big issues that Trump won on in 2024 was the trans issue. It was an LGBT. It was related to classrooms. It was related to sports leagues. It was related to very intimate personal choices and identity. And he came out and effectively said, this trans stuff has gone crazy, and I'm not preaching to you. I'm not citing Bible verses, but it's crazy. We're done with that.
But see, that's the thing. He approached it from a common sense perspective. You don't belong here. You're a this.
Yeah.
It wasn't from
a high level
yes,
theological.
It wasn't.
I agree.
And I'll tell you this too. I think Republicans will lose if they try to go back to the, well, we should reverse same-sex marriage and all this stuff. Like, we're going to lose. Well, why don't we realize that? We're going to lose.
On same-sex marriage, I'm not so sure. Now, I agree today. I don't think that reversing Obergefell would play very well. That's why the Supreme Court didn't take it up.
Yeah.
But what's very strange is, for the first time now, Obergefell was 2015, Will and Grace was 1998. There's a long build towards support for same-sex marriage. Support for same-sex marriage is declining. Right now, the latest number to come out is 54% supportive. So obviously, it's still majority support.
So why do you think that is? I'll tell you why I think it is. It's because the LGB got hijacked by the T, and now people think of all of that in the same bucket. And I think that actual just gay people are not happy with that.
I think there's a lot of truth to that. Part of the reason, though, is I think that, you know, we call them the normal gays, you know, the kind of like they're not parading around in the streets in leather or whatever. But part of it is marriage. Like, marriage comes from matrimony, right? Matrimony comes from the word mater, mother. It is simply not possible for two men to be married to each other. Two men can love each other. Two men can have a relationship with each other. But it just isn't marriage. Marriage for all of history was defined by a difference in sex, and the purpose of it was to have kids. I think a lot of people are very turned off by some of the IVF and surrogacy industry, which is going to play into that a little bit too. But I think the reason people are turning on same-sex marriage, which I predicted, is because you had basically the same ideology from the bra-burning feminists of the 70s all the way up to transing the kids. And the ideology said men and women are the same. You know, woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle. That was Gloria Steinem back in the 70s. That leads to the LGBT movement, which says men and women are basically the same. Leads to redefining marriage. Well, if men and women are the same, then two men, two women are the same as a man and a woman. If men and women are the same, why can't a man become a woman? if a man can become a woman, if men and women are the same, why can't a little kid be the opposite sex? Now, I don't think people are thinking of this consciously, but I think as that moved in this direction, when people saw transing the kids and they said, whoa, I'm out. I'm out. All the kind of like the normal gays against rumors, whatever. They say, whoa, I'm out. This is too far. Men and women's sports, guys changing in the girls' locker room. I'm out. It forced people to question that premise that men and women are exactly the same. And I think it's going to keep moving in the other direction. And I think we need to make sure that as that happens, the conservatives are not painted as misogynistic, or which really is now how the Democrats are painted. There's all sorts of questions as it moves. I predict, I could be proven wrong, I predict within 50 years, save this tape, within 50 years, same-sex marriage will not be a thing in America.
Okay, that is a hot take.
No, it's 50 years. I have a long way to go before
that
you can
is
prove me
a
wrong.
hot take. What I think is that the regular gays are going to realize that the T is effing everything up for them, and they're going to abandon the T, and I think maybe in 50 years, we're not going to have the T anymore. That's my prediction.
I think in 5 years, we're not going to have the T anymore. I think it's been so toxic for the rest of the rainbow, for sure, and for the Democrats. You're going to have a real hard time. They're going to have a real hard time winning elections. Because the reason the T really screwed everything up for the left is that they could advance their ideology in all sorts of abstract ways. But the minute they give you like a big husky guy, and but he's wearing a dress or something, he says, I'm a woman. Everybody, I don't care how tuned out of politics you are, everybody looks at that and they say, that's just not true. And if you're lying to me about something so obvious, so commonsensical, maybe you're lying to me about the economy. Yeah. Maybe you're lying to me about healthcare. Maybe you're lying to me about like everything. It's, to me, the fall off on trans ideology, that's going to be precipitous.
Oh, I agree. However, Democrats fundraise a lot on that issue, so it will be a part
that's a good
of
point.
that party for a while, because that's where the money is in California.
Right.
A Democrat told me that. In the time I have left with you, I want to talk about our side, right? I want to talk about the Republican Civil War.
Yeah.
I don't tend to, there's some people that are really caught up on it. I'm not really. When people ask me about it, to me, I don't play in the Fringe. Yeah. The Fringe is not like where I like to hang out. I think that's a weird place to be. Yeah. I'd like to be closer to the mainstream. But there's certainly a fringe element that has reared an ugly head in the movement.
Yeah.
And for people that are really embedded in the movement, they're very up on it. And I wonder how you think this is going to play out for us.
Everything old is new again. That's how it all seems so new, all these fresh fights, but they're really long-standing. And so, yes, we're in a GOP civil war, I guess. And in part, this is spurred on by some fringe element that is legitimately, anti-Semitic and quite bigoted and all the rest. Sure. However, it remains very fringe. It doesn't affect the major players. And what has happened is some person will say something about the fringe, and then some other person will say something about the person who said the something about, and all of a sudden, the battle lines get drawn again. What is it really a fight over? It's a fight over 2028. It's not really a fight over anti-Semitism or racism or this policy or that policy. It's really a fight over 2028 because for 10 years, we have had a clear leader. It's Donald Trump, who has kept a coalition together. He's kept the bad guys out. He's kept the good guys in. Even though the good guys, a lot of them hate each other, he's made them all play nice. Another person who did that beautifully well, possibly better than the president even, was Charlie Kirk. This was the chief function in terms of practical politics of TPUSA. And I hope will continue to be that for many years to come. But Charlie was a master at it. Now the heir apparent is J.D. Vance. So there's a fight over the vice president. Which side is he going to land on? Which faction is he going to be a part of? And so whenever there's a threat from legitimately bad elements, yes, you have to be clear about what you believe. You have to delineate guidelines. All movements need that. There's going to be a lot of opportunism that comes in. And the head of this think tank is going to hit the head of that think tank. And the head of this policy institute is going to go after this activist. That's going to go on from now until the nomination in 2028. It was always kind of built in, but with a major sea change, like Trump leaving, it was ever thus.
It's more so, though, podcasters going after podcasters and content creators going after content creators. And here's the deal. Everybody has their ability to do that. Their hustle is their hustle. But I worry because I think we won in 24 because of podcasting.
Yeah.
I think that played a major role in it, whether it's Trump being on podcasts or just podcasters in general.
Mm-hmm.
We became the media.
Yes.
People that do this became the media. And that's why we were able to get so many young people, because we decided we needed to play on this playground that traditionally we didn't. However, the dark underbelly of that is that now we've really emboldened podcasters, and that's great. Like, I love it. I do it too, right?
Yeah.
But I'm sure you get it too, where people will legitimately come to me and they'll tell me conspiracy theories about the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and they are fully bought in, and they don't view it as a conspiracy theory. They view it as fact, and they believe it wholeheartedly. That gives me a major ick, and I don't like it. And I don't know how you feel about it. I'm sure you are probably more in it than I am, because I don't, like I said, I don't really interact with the Fringe that much.
I like the avant-garde a little bit.
You like to be in, you like to play in the Fringe, dip your toe into the Fringe.
At least take a peek. Take a peek.
So tell me, how's the Fringe doing? And do you think that it's helpful?
I think you're totally right about the prevalence of conspiracy theories. The point that we have to give, though, to the people who are very sincerely entertaining these things, who come up to you on the street and say, I heard this, or I was thinking about this. We lived through a time of conspiracy. COVID was a time when our public officials lied to us about major global events. And so it's a natural reaction to say, well, all right, I'm going to question everything.
You think it's being exploited then?
Of course. Well, there's always going to be some overreaction to something like that. And you are seeing that play out. And I think your point is so apt. You're right. We're certainly not talking about politicians. We're slightly talking about institutional leaders. But really, yes, a lot of this is fighting between podcasters. And there's a really, really good essay on this phenomenon in City Journal by Christopher Rufo. And in it, he was reading all of this through the lens of a writer named Baudrillard, who had a theory of hyperreality that is probably too lengthy to get into, but it basically says at a certain point, a good example of this came from a guy named Wokal Distance, who says you start out, you eat a strawberry, you really like it, and then you want more, so you have a strawberry candy, but then you want more, so you want a strawberry Jolly Rancher, but then you want more, you want a strawberry Jolly Rancher slushie. By the end, the slushie really doesn't taste anything like the strawberry. You're so many layers removed. It's so intense. It gets all your pistons firing. I think that's what we've done with politics. 2024 was the podcaster election. I do take some pride to say I think we did help move the ball down the field. That we were talking about a candidate then. We were talking about practical politics. We were talking about elections. We basically never talk about that now. It's all just podcasters talking about podcasters. Who cares? I'm old enough to remember when political analysts on TV or in the newspaper, now in podcasts, when they would talk about actual practical politics. You don't hear that. To me, it's so navel-gazing. It's so distasteful. It's podcasters making themselves the story rather than actually focusing on what is good for the country. A lot of it's going to be opportunistic because the various factions on the right, the trads and the neocons and the paleocons and the libertarians and the new right and the old new right and the new old new right, whatever, all these groups.
They're all grifters.
The America First, America Second, America
and the
Third,
grifters.
It's all of these groups are going to come in and jockey for position as 2028 comes in. And my rule of thumb on this is, obviously, when there's a substantive matter, you have to weigh in on it. You have to draw clear moral lines and policy lines. When it's podcasters talking about podcasters, many of whom I'm friends with, when it's podcasters talking about podcasters, to me, that's schoolyard stuff. I'm not into it. I see how people get baited into it. I understand the urge.
Yeah.
I think we need to keep our eyes on the prize. The reason that we do what we do should be to advance the good of the country. Part of how you do that is through practical politics, picking politicians, getting them elected, having them pass laws to actually improve people's lives. Democrats clearly completely lost sight of that. They got blown out in the elections, and they're being blamed for the shutdown. Republicans should not make that same mistake.
Let's talk about Israel, though, because that seems to be kind of the main thing that people are
At
arguing
least on the
over.
internet. I don't know in real life, but
on the internet, right? Yeah. But it's concerning to me, right? It's concerning to me how far it's gone.
Yeah.
Because you've got legitimate criticisms of, hey, maybe I don't want my money going, as much of my money going to support a foreign country, and I don't want, that's like a legitimate thing to discuss. Or I don't agree with the Israeli government on X, Y, and Z. Like, that's a legitimate standpoint to have. But then there are people that just say Israel's at fault for everything, and everything that happens, it's Israel's fault. It's kind of like the left says everything is Trump's fault.
A friend of mine describes it for like kind of extreme fringes. They say Israel is like the climate change for the extreme fringe right. You know, you just blame
Yeah.
everything on it. So I stubbed my toe. Ah, damn you, Israel. Why did you do that to me?
But why is that? Why has that become what this, if we want to call it this civil war in the movement? Why has that become the cornerstone of it?
Well, because there's been a shift in the global order. And so, you know, Israel plays a big role in that. I mean, the immediate reason is there's been a 2-year war started by Hamas, but in which Israel has been a little heavy-handed, I think most people would admit, maybe justifiably so, but including a couple hits on Christian sites that really irritated Christians in the West. It led to a reevaluation. What is our relationship with the state of Israel? And I always say I have the least popular view on this, which is that I'm broadly supportive of the state of Israel. However, I think that the state of Israel is only useful to us in as much as it corresponds with American interests. And we're two separate countries. Sometimes our interests align, sometimes they don't. When they don't, we need to rein them in since we're their political protector. And when they do advance our interests, we should be supportive of that. I also recognize the legitimate rights of the Palestinian people. I don't think there should be some new nation state for Palestinian Arabs. We have been in conflict with Islam for roughly 1,400 years.
Yeah.
And so basically my view is it's complicated. And that is the one view that you're not allowed to have. You have to support Israel with a blank check at all costs and say, you know, to be an American patriot, you have to support Israel or whatever on the one side. And then on the other side, you have to say that every dastardly thing that's ever taken place in the history of the world, it comes from this nation state founded in 1948, which is preposterous as well. With this reevaluation of the American right, of the American left in many ways, I think that question is inevitably going to come up. My preferred solution is kind of like my preferred solution on abortion that we were talking about earlier, which is it's a nuanced question. We should, in my view, if we want to win elections and maintain a coalition, not say we just slavishly love Israel or we completely hate Israel. We should reduce the importance of Israel to the conservative policy vision, to the foreign policy of the United States, and be a little nuanced about it. The one thing you're not allowed to be on podcasts.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think most people are in that. By the way, in the
most
movement.
real people are in that.
No,
camp.
we're in the movement. But you know what? Having that opinion doesn't get you clicks.
Right. I know. I
Being
joke about it all the time.
extreme gets you clicks.
Yes.
Being extreme makes you a lot of money.
Yes.
That's my fear of where we are now.
And this is why when I see people on the internet, streamers, tweeters, whatever, and they have these really extreme views on Israel or any other matter, I understand it. I say, okay, I see how this serves your interest.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really see how this serves the interest of the Republican Party, the conservative movement, or the United States. And so, good for you, man. That's fine. You can do very well and get a lot of views. But that's not really my chief interest here. My chief interest is, in a very practical way, to make sure that this administration is successful and does good for the American people so that the next guy can come in, the heir apparent is probably J.D. Vance, so that we can get good policies that actually improve the lives of America, of Americans, that can actually persuade people to come on over to our tent, maybe give us a little bit of a generational run. And, you know, if you can get clicks while we're doing that, that's fine. And if you don't, doesn't bother me either.
Yeah, I'm right there with you on that. For me, I think we're always going to win on the economy and immigration. And that, to me, that goes along with safety, security, the economy.
Yeah.
Lastly, though, who do you see for 2028? Are you just giving it to J.D. Vance?
Yeah.
Would you like to see some competition, or do you think that that's just where we need to already focus our energy?
Look, I have a lot of friends who are in government, who are in politics, who I'm sure would love to be president, and I'm sure they'd be great presidents. But it's simply a fact that right now, J.D. Vance is the heir apparent. This is not just like coming to the end of a regular 2 terms, 1992, when it could have been George H.W. Bush, or it could have been Pat Buchanan. And who knows, maybe we picked the wrong guy. You know, I mean, and I don't think Reagan exactly loved George H.W. Bush. They were bitter rivals before 1980. It's not like that. This is a non-consecutive second term, meaning people elected Trump knowing that he was only going to have 1 term, and the vice president was therefore going to matter a lot more. In many ways, I think, the Republicans have already selected J.D. Vance as the heir apparent. President Trump has suggested on Air Force One that Vance and Rubio should run as a ticket. Rubio is probably the next most likely guy to be the nominee. Mm-hmm. Don't even have them run against each other. Basically have them run as incumbents, which because this is only the second time we've had a non-consecutive second term, the other one was Grover Cleveland, because of that, they could have a lot of the advantages of incumbents. And there are plenty of governors and senators and other people who I'm sure would like to get the nom. This is basically going to be Trump crowning a successor. It's just where we are. Do you disagree?
No, I agree with you. I love Marco Rubio, and I think I don't dislike JD Vance, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm very clear when people ask me about this. I think JD Vance. I like to listen to JD Vance. I liked him taking questions at the TPUSA event.
Great.
I love that he did it.
Yeah.
I love his answers. I love the way that he conducts himself, and I enjoy it. I worry about the crossover appeal with the JD Vance.
Too conservative, you think?
I think that there's just something about him that we're talking about those independents again. We're talking about them, the women. I think that there's just something about him for independents, or maybe for independent women or left-leaning independent women. There's something about him that I don't know if he's got the crossover appeal. I don't know if he can capture them. There's plenty of time to do it. I think Rubio has a better chance of it.
Interesting.
That's my thing. But I don't think that Rubio would step over the current VP, and I don't think the VP is going to run for VP under Rubio.
No.
You just can't make that ticket.
No.
But I think that Marco Rubio at the top of the ticket would be an easier
More
layup.
appealing. That's interesting. You know, it's funny with Trump. In some ways, Trump was supposed to repulse all of the women of America. He's called women nasty, and Megyn Kelly had that very funny question at the first round of debates, and he said, "Only Rosie O'Donnell have I made fun of," whatever. So in many ways, he was supposed to repulse women. Now Trump has a lot of riz. Trump is a very charismatic figure, and so I don't know. I feel good about Vance's appeal to Middle America in part because he comes from pretty lower middle class background, and he's struggled a lot. He can speak to ordinary challenges of Americans, and if he struggles with women at all, I'm not convinced he does, but if he does, just get Usha Vance out there on the trail. That woman's great.
I would like to see her more, actually, to be honest with you.
I think part of what I love about her is she's a normal person and doesn't want to be in this political spotlight all the time.
But Melania never did either.
Melania, same thing.
She really does not try to be in the spotlight.
That's right.
I think in many ways Ivanka was a secret weapon for President Trump in 2016. And I think that would be great if we could replicate that.
Yeah.
I think it's going to take some work, though. That needs to start now. I'm telling you, my biggest vulnerability that I see with the movement right now is with women, and I think that it's never too late to start working on it.
Yeah, I think that's fair. You remember Vance showed up to the VP debate. He had the pink tie on, and he said, women don't necessarily trust us on these important issues, and that's why he really spoke directly to them. And I totally agree. I don't know if that had any effect on 2024, but I totally agree. You've got to bring the women along with you. Trump made big strides in 2024, and the big question that remains to be seen, and maybe this brings us all the way back up to what happened on election night a week ago. Can the Republican Party, this new coalition, win without Trump on the ballot?
Yeah.
Or is it really all about the big guy? We don't know.
But it can't be.
Right? Not in the long term, yeah.
I mean, I wish he could run again, but he can't. So we're going to have to figure it out. And we've got to start now.
That's right.
Because the left they haven't figured it out yet, but I have a feeling that they will.
Or we could just repeal the 22nd Amendment. We get the third term, and then while we're overturning Supreme Court cases.
There we go. You're dancing on the fringe again.
Ronald Reagan endorsed that. Maybe this could be the final step in the Reagan Revolution. Although I think they would a third term would probably be too much.
I agree with you. Well, I appreciate you being here. Thank you for coming to our little corner of Nashville.
This is great. Thank you for having me.
And best of luck on your travels.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, I hope that you and I are not camped out at the airport for too long.
I know.
But if so, maybe we can grab a bottle of booze from around here and
The Nashville airport is a great place to be. LaGuardia, not so much. For a lot of reasons. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Tomi.
We live in a world where personal information is more accessible than ever, sometimes a little too accessible. Data brokers collect and sell your private details, your name, your home address, phone number, even your browsing habits without you ever knowing. And that's where Incogni comes in. It works behind the scenes to remove your data from these databases, reducing your exposure to marketers, scammers, and anyone else who might use it without your consent. Your privacy should be yours to control, so take back your information with Incogni today. Using Incogni feels like finally reclaiming your personal space, but online.
No more random calls, no more data breaches, just peace. And Incogni is so thorough, they go after all kinds of data brokers, marketing firms, credit companies, people search sites, recruitment data brokers, any sort of medical or police information, you name it. They've got your info. Incogni is coming for it, so you're covered in all areas. And now they've introduced something huge, custom data removals. With their new unlimited plan, you can copy and paste any link where your info shows up on sites beyond their usual list, and their privacy team will work to get it taken down. Incogni's privacy experts actually go in and handle the removal manually, even from sites that are harder to deal with. It's like having a privacy SWAT team on speed dial. Best of all, you can cancel anytime, and they offer a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you can get it completely risk-free. Right now, you can get 60% off an annual plan by going to Incogni.com and using code TOMMY. That's Incogni, INCOGNI.com/Tommy, TOMI, and use code TOMMY at checkout.
All right, folks, that does it for this episode of Tomi Lahren is Fearless. Full episodes are on Outkick and Fox Nation. Also, the YouTube channel. Make sure you're following at Tomi Lahren is Fearless. From Nashville, God bless.